All right, my friends, welcome, welcome, welcome. And it's a beautiful Friday. It's the time for our guest today, Sabby Sabs. Without any interruption whatsoever, we're going to be getting with her immediately. Without any further ado. But before we do this, as you know, as we say in the biz, it's time to ring that cash register, and we'll get with her immediately after this incredibly pertinent message. When disaster hits, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall back on what you already prepared. Wildfires, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, blackouts, EMP and grid attacks, riots, disaster. Get it? And when the warning comes, there's no time to search for flashlights or bottled water or first aid supplies while your family waits at the door. That's why My Patriot Supply created the fully stocked bug out bag. You've got to get this. It's a rugged, grab and go tactical backpack packed with 60 emergency essentials, including food, water, shelter, fire, starting tools, lighting, first aid, and more. Everything is already packed and ready right out of the box. Keep one in your car, your home, your RV, your office, your cabin, because the emergencies never make appointments. And right now, you can get $100 off plus free shipping for a limited time. So act now. There will be no special invitation in life. Disaster always comes unannounced. Get prepared now. Go to preparewithlionel.com. That's preparewithlionel.com and click the link today. All right, my dear friends, without further ado, here she is. Sabby Sabs, welcome.
Hi, Lionel. Thank you so much for having me on.
First question, what do I call you? What is your name? Explain your name.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, explain your name. What do I call you?
Oh, you can call me Sabby or Sabrina.
Tell me the story behind that.
So originally, like when I started my show, the show was called Sabby Sabs. And because that was the name of the show, people just started calling me Sabby. That's how that really started. But before that, like most people called me Sabrina.
Where are you from? Give a little background that you don't mind revealing. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I live in Massachusetts. I'm right outside of Boston. I've lived in different places. My family was military, so we lived overseas. We've lived down south, and I've kind of been all over the place.
What was your favorite place to live?
Oh dear. I really do like living in Massachusetts. I like having 4 seasons. That's a big part of it. I don't really like the cost of living here, to be honest with you. I enjoyed the cost of living in the Carolinas and South Carolina and North Carolina. But I like Massachusetts. But out of all of them, I would probably say Germany. Germany was my favorite place to live.
Really? Why is that?
Yeah. It's just very different. I think if you've ever been to Europe, you get to see how other countries have more efficient systems. Like, for example, they have a high-speed train, right? So when I lived in Germany and we took field trips in school, we would just get on the high-speed train and we would go to France and we would go to Spain and we would be there just like that, you know? And here in the US, it's like you have to take the Amtrak and it's not as efficient.
No.
So some of that, the infrastructure is a little bit better in some ways. It's just different.
Have you ever been to Penn Station in New York? Hooterville?
I
Have you ever
have.
seen? The Night of the Living Dead. What is their attitude politically in terms of being geopolitically with it compared to the States?
You know, for me, I think because I lived overseas, I have a little bit more sympathy to what is happening in other countries and just seeing what a different lifestyle is like. So when I lived in Germany, you know, just knowing that they had healthcare for everyone there. And then you come back to the States and you just like, what is all this private health insurance? And why do you have to buy into all these different systems? And why is it connected to your job? There were just things that to me just did not make sense. So when I looked at some of those programs, I said, well, in a lot of the European countries, they are taking care of their people, right? They chose to take care of their infrastructure. They chose to basically prioritize their people. And when I see the United States and I look at the budgets, it's very clear to me that the US government chose to prioritize war. And that's why we have a large defense budget, which I don't think we're really defending ourselves. We're starting a lot of conflicts overseas. And if we were to take that money from our defense budget and we would have utilized it the way some of the other countries have, I think we would have had high speed rail here in the US. I think our people would be taken care of. I don't think we would have this high homelessness rate that we have right now. So it's just interesting what different governments chose to prioritize.
What was your background? How did you get into media?
So I actually started as an educator. I worked in
Ooh.
higher ed for over 10 years. I was an academic advisor, loved it, loved working with the students. And it was during the pandemic that I decided to start the podcast. There was a lot going on at that time. I'm sure you remember my state was locked down. I had a
Mm.
lot of time on my hands during that time. But when we went under the lockdown, I did see a lot of businesses close, even businesses in the tourist areas. And I started to have this frustration, just not understanding, how did we get here? Why are people losing their businesses? Why are people losing their jobs? A lot of people were laid off. And the state just, at first, they didn't really have a response. Then the federal government said, we're sending these PPE loans. That's supposed to help out those small businesses. Unfortunately, for Massachusetts, by the time that money came, it was already too late for a lot of those mom and pop businesses. And so for me, there was a lot of frustration about the economy. And that's why I started the podcast.
How would you define yourself politically, if that's even possible?
It's interesting. Well, politically, I am left, right? And I don't consider the Democratic Party to be left. The Democratic Party,
Ah,
yeah, a lot of people think they're
explain that.
left. Yeah, the Democratic Party is a right-wing party. What they basically do is they implement the ratchet effect. The ratchet effect is, if you could picture this wheel, the ratchet effect is when the Democratic Party, they stop any policy or any progress from moving to the actual left, even if that means that the Republican Party is going to win. They really don't care if they lose. There's a lot of things that I learned when I was a registered Democrat that I saw, and I realized they just want to fundraise.
When you were, what are you now, pray tell?
I'm registered no party affiliate.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm independent. Whatever that
Yeah.
means.
Yeah. I couldn't do it anymore. And I think, again, the pandemic was what really woke me up to that like, I said, wow, they're really just going to let people drown. Like, I don't understand it. And that wasn't just the federal government, but also the local government. And people were getting evicted. And I said, no, there has to be something better than this. So the Democratic Party basically is controlled opposition. They operate in a sense to continue to support the establishment and to stop anything that goes against the establishment. And that's not just universal programs. That's also anti-war voices. They want to censor those too. This is another thing. Like, people think that's just the Trump administration. It's not. That's also the Democratic Party. They wanted to silence a lot of us that don't want these wars, because both parties do support war. They support foreign intervention. They support basically imperialism abroad, because that's what benefits Wall Street, and that's what benefits the military industrial complex. So at the end of the day, they're very much establishment, and they're there to maintain the status quo.
If you looked at most Americans, how similar do you think we all are in terms of real issues that we get along with or we agree with versus what really defines us or separates us?
You know, it's interesting. I've lived in red states and I live in a blue state now. And I can tell you, when I lived in red states, the one thing I think everybody had in common is that people just wanted to have a decent living. Most people that I met didn't want to become rich or famous, but they wanted to be able to provide the American dream. They wanted to be able to have a home, start a family, most of them. And we've gotten further and further away from that. So I think one of the things that really unites us, that both parties don't want to happen, is the class perspective. The majority of us are on the bottom, whether we realize it or not. And the moment that we all come together and realize that it's top versus bottom and not left versus right, that's when I think you're going to see real change in this country. But they don't want that. So to prevent that, they keep us divided by different issues, the left versus right. It's the radical left. It's the radical right, the extreme left. They have to put us into these camps so that we don't come together on a class analysis, a class perspective. Now, some of the leaders in the past, they realized this early on, right? Like, I think JFK understood this. MLK understood it. Fred Hampton from the Black Panthers understood this. And you see, they're gone. They had to stop those people from making any type of real, I would say, substantial progress and creating a class movement. And unfortunately, after they were assassinated, neoliberalism basically took hold. So the answer then became, let's just vote for politicians to represent our needs and hope that they do the right thing. The problem is the politicians, most of them in Congress are bought off. Most of them support big corporate interests. Most of them are owned by, whether it's not just AIPAC as much as people talk about it, but the pro-Israel lobby, big pharma, military industrial complex.
Big tech.
Most of them are bought off, big tech, right? And that's really who they work for instead of working for us. And I think that some of us got comfortable. And I was one of those people too. I just said, well, every 4 years, I'm going to go vote for the president of the United States. And especially as a young adult, I didn't really participate in the midterms in these primary races, right? So as I got older, I started to see that while all this time is going by, there are other things that we could be doing as the grassroots. And I think that's the piece that's really missing. Like, a lot of people are hoping that politicians are going to save you. And I'm here to tell you, nobody is coming to save you.
You do know that if I took this first 9, let's say out of 11 and a half minutes, if I took 9 minutes of what you just said, I put that together, I could get you elected to any position, any race, anywhere in the country. If that's what they heard, and that's what you believe, which I believe, I know Americans would agree with it. So what's the divide? What are we divided about?
So the way the way they've been able to keep us divided is over a lot of the social issues, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's the racial issues, whether it's what's the new one now? Oh, AI, right? They're telling you that the people protesting the data centers, they said they're domestic terrorists, right? So it's just, and reality is people are losing their homes because of some of these data centers.
Yep.
Data centers are actually they're noisy. So this, I think, is a wake-up call for rural America, because that's where they're trying to put a lot of them, because there's more space. Their job is to teach you that your neighbor is the enemy, that someone else is the enemy. And as long as you believe that, then you won't pay attention to the fact that the president of the United States does not run the country. This country is run by the elite, the upper elite. And that is the real enemy. It's the trillionaires now. It's the trillionaires, it's the billionaires, it's the corporations. That is who is making the decisions, even when it comes to some of the foreign policy decisions. And they don't want you to realize that. So they have to keep us divided on other issues.
It's almost like that is created a boogeyman or a bone of contention. You and I are always going to find you got people that you love, members of your family, neighbors, friends. You're always going to disagree with so many things, but you say, yeah, but they're not critical. They're not critical differences. Those are just differences. We have to break it down into what's critical and what's not. Let me ask you this great question. Well, I think it's great because everybody has that moment. When was your red pill moment, your epiphany, when you said, oh?
I'd have to say it was the Bernie Sanders presidential campaigns. 2016, when I saw the DNC cheat Bernie Sanders, they took states away from him that he won and gave them to Hillary Clinton because I guess the decision was already made that Hillary was going to be the nominee. That's who they wanted. I watched him get cheated in real time on television. And after that, that's when I started to understand how politics really works. And I would say that I believe personally, if Bernie Sanders would have won in 2016, I think he could have beaten Donald Trump. He had a populist message. He had a message that was going to transcend different nationalities, et cetera, but one that was class consciousness. And I think a lot of people would understand what he was talking about. And they say young people can't afford to buy a home. People are in medical debt. These things resonate with people. But again, the Democratic Party they can't have somebody come in that's
Mhm.
actually going to do something for the 99% of the people. So they have to keep the Hillary in, the neocon, the warmonger, the one that's chosen and selected by corporations and the military industrial complex. So we aren't even really selecting the president. That's already decided by corporate interests. And that's the unfortunate part. So seeing that happen, that kind of woke me up. I remember I was very angry and bitter. I'd say,
Mhm.
like, right before that, I had a big disappointment with Barack Obama. I really thought that things were going to change
What happened
because
there?
he ran on hope and change. And I don't know if everybody remembers this, but when Obama was running in '08, he said he was going to end the wars in the Middle East. That was another thing that he said. So, right. And that didn't happen. There was hope, but there was no real change. He bombed civilians in Libya, killed Gaddafi, like continued what his predecessors also
And
were doing.
wasn't his, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't his deportation policy, even though it wasn't called ICE per se, it was not too shabby, Sabby.
No, it wasn't. And I hate to say this, but the reality is a lot of liberals don't like when you bring this up. Barack
Mhm.
Obama deported more people than Donald Trump did. And when you show them the numbers, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to see that."
Right,
Because
right.
that's the problem with idolizing a politician.
Mhm.
Nobody can tell you or show you anything. Some
Oh,
people to this day don't even know that Barack Obama killed civilians in Libya. And it's, what are we doing like as a country? So we have to wake up, and we can't idolize politicians. I would say if you're looking for a hero, the hero is going to be people in your community. So you really have to talk to your neighbors, and you have to work with people in
yep.
your community. And that's how you're going to get change.
Have you ever suffered any very serious pushbacks? Well, not censorship, but the first time you hit pushback or blowback, and you realize, wait a minute, whatever happened to this First Amendment and free speech? What was the first one when realized, but I'm not hurting anybody, it's just an idea? Were you a conspiracy theorist? Were you a tinfoil hat lunatic, a racist, a leftist, a commie? Let me just go down the list. I mean, what was the first moment you said, what?
It was the Russia-Ukraine war at the very beginning. I was covering that, and I was explaining to people what happened in 2014, like how we got here and how this was a NATO, proxy war,
My
and
God,
that
remember that?
Ukraine was, yeah, you understand. So
Oh, yeah.
I was explaining that, and that was at the
Victoria
beginning of the war.
Nuland and NATO and
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
and her husband. What do you think about recently about Kagan, Robert Kagan, her husband saying this Iran thing, big mistake? It's like, what? Wait, we'll get to that in a moment.
no,
Say, are you what? Have you been possessed? Which I got to
I
get to that.
know.
Have you
We were
noticed? I'm sorry, please. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Yeah, I was talking about that. And I also mentioned in that video, you can say this now, but at the time on YouTube, they were removing videos for people telling the
Yes,
truth about Ukraine. I was telling people about the Nazification in Ukraine. And
yes.
the next thing I know, I got this message from YouTube that said this video has been removed for the following reason. I was like, what is going on?
Right.
So at the beginning of the war, when it first started, there was heavy censorship around the Russia-Ukraine war.
Stepan Bandera. You talk about this. It's like, and we love, you know how we love to use this word, anti-Semite, which is everything, racist, white nationalist, but then they love the word Nazi. And I said, you know where the Nazis are? I'll show you. And I said, they're in Ukraine. Oh, dear. And then they said, but Zelensky's a Jew. And I said, oh, come on. this I'm kind of, look, I'm a little older. I'm used to this. It's like I've been. It's like okay. But wasn't that? Did you think to yourself, what where have they been? Where have I been? Am I in? I hate to say it. Am I in special ed? Do I start at the beginning? Is it a no? I'm not trying to because I hate when anybody mock people, but I think there are severe learning disabilities, and I think they're self-imposed. What did you do? Did you say, okay, I won't talk about that, which is 90% of my subject? How did you handle it?
So at that time, I said, well, I guess I can't talk about the Nazi part. Like some of us that were political commentators, we talked about each other, or we talked to each other behind the scenes,
Yeah,
and it was happening to other people too. And
right.
so we all realized, oh, it must be the Nazi thing. That must have been what it was. So going forward, we started to use code words for it.
Yes. Oh, which is, but I'm doing that now. And sometimes these code words change. I'll tell you how bad I was because I'm not. I was a little slow in this. Somebody kept saying, "Well, we got to worry about this with Epstein in the PDF files," and I said, "Why are they talking about?" I said, "Well, you could send just a text." I had no idea what he's talking because I just missed it. It's when they first, and then somebody will come up with a new one and unalived, and there are some poor people who have to edit it, and their piece sounds like Epstein, and well, our ally. And I thought, what's the matter with my machine? Did I pay my bill? And it's sad. It's like it's like either don't bring it up or don't demean yourself by this. What other code words did you have to muster? What other areas did you say, I can't talk about that? How about, dare I say, that particular time when we all wore masks? Remember that one?
Yes. We used to call it, I either say the pandemic or we used to call it the Rona because there was
Yeah,
censorship
right.
over that too. Mhm.
I called it my Sharona. I'm thinking the neck. I'm thinking all these. Did you ever find yourself at 7 p.m. opening up your window and listening to people like with pots and pans and the first did you ever think, oh my God, this is like a Twilight Zone. What's happened? What happened to this country that I knew?
Yeah.
Did the subjugation and the 6 feet and this I don't know what you want to call it, just surrender, didn't it shock you?
It did. We used to have a lot more autonomy on YouTube, and that changed over time, especially for those of us that are independent media. YouTube, a couple of years ago, they decided to change the algorithm where they would boost corporate media, and the rest of us that were independent media, we were pushed further down in that algorithm. And so that was the first sign of, okay, things are starting to change. I've been very fortunate that I've had some videos that have managed to break through the algorithm. And I think that's what
Yes,
brought,
you have. And I
people.
think I think to be fair, to our friends at YouTube, I think it's a little bit better now. I think deep, call me stupid. I think if truth be told, don't you think they just say, we just want to make money? I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say. I remember one time I saw an Indian girl who had like 30 million views, and she's unboxing curling irons. I'm thinking, this is okay. So I think things are a little bit better. I do. I don't want to be naive here, but I think that things might be a little bit better, and I think people are. I kind of like it. I don't want to tempt fate, but at any event, let's talk about right now. Top of the, if I could put on some kind of fMRI imaging, and I just gave you some topics, what would make your brain just redline? What is your top of mind? What is that one thing that just something happens to you viscerally? What would that be?
The big one is the economy. And this is kind of connected to everything. I think more people are starting to see it now. The United States empire is declining. And we've been predicting this, I think, for years. You can tell what the housing market is terrible. The average person can't afford to buy a single family home. And that includes kids who are graduating with college degrees, by the way. That's one indication. The wages are not increasing the way they should to adjust for inflation. And then there's artificial intelligence that is now
Mhm.
consuming some of these jobs that people thought they were going to be able to get, even some of those white collar jobs. AI has made its way there as well. And my biggest fear is that I don't think a lot of Americans are ready for what is to come.
Oh yeah.
I just received a message yesterday that my trash pickup is now going to be automated.
What does that mean?
It means that the company that they are contracted with now is going to just come. There's going to be a truck that's going to automatically just pick up it's not going to have, we're not going to have the trash pickup
A
guys.
garbage man, a regular. Is it
Right.
going to be
Right.
autonomous? Is it going to be autonomous?
That's the message that just came out. And so I worry about this, and I worry about, as someone who was an academic advisor, all these kids graduating from college with these degrees that they may not even be able to use in the next
Wow.
5 to 10 years. That is what they are predicting. Bill Gates and the other, tech bros are predicting 5 to 10 years before some of these jobs are going to be consumed by artificial intelligence. Where does that leave us as a society? I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned that people can't buy single family homes or a home. It worries me that I see people in their 30s and their 40s that still have roommates, not because they want to, but because they can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment, which is starting at like $2,500. This is where we're heading as a society. And it seems like no matter who we've put into office, they're not really fixing it. And there's a difference between addressing an issue and actually fixing the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not doing that. And if things don't change, I mean, we're going to see poverty numbers that we could not have ever imagined.
And we're also going to see poverty that's theoretical poverty, where somebody, they look good, they seem to be, everything's going great, but they can't buy anything, or they're maybe imprisoned by this. I've got to talk to you about this, and I do a little thought experiment, and one of them is I either meet an alien or God. Pick one. And somebody says to you, Sabrina, what's going on in the Middle East? What is this? And of course, I know God's asking you this. It makes no sense. But you would say, what would you? Or if somebody said from other, what are they doing? Why do these people hate? What is the goal? Help me out with this. And by the way, if you could figure the same thing, if they ask you, why do we have golf? Which is another story. But why are we killing each other? Simple question. I don't want to be We Are the World, but please help me. I'm from another planet. What are you doing?
Yeah, so you have to connect it back to the money. The reason why Israel was able to commit genocide, the reason why Israel was able to have an Iron Dome and other countries are not having that type of defense, is because the state of Israel and its existence is supported by corporate interests. People have to understand
American corporate interests.
Yes. Corporations want Israel to be there and to do what it's doing. And I'll explain why. Joe Biden, when he was still a senator, he gave a speech on the floor. And he said, if Israel didn't exist, we would have to create an Israel. This is very important for people to get. Colonel Larry Wilkerson, who's been on my show a number of times, he explained to me when he was with the W. Bush administration. Mm-hmm. He was the chief of staff to Colin Powell. What became very clear is that the United States needs Israel to exist in the Middle East because of the resources that exist there. So the big one is oil, right? If the United States does not have Israel there, which I basically call just an extended U.S. military base, that's how I see Israel, then that means that the other Arab countries in that area, they would have complete control over the resources, the oil, the gas. There's gas lines along the coast of Gaza as well. They would have control over all of that, and the U.S. would not be able to tap into that. That's part of it. People have to understand that the Israel existence for corporate interests has nothing to do with religion. Israel is a secular state. It has nothing to do with protecting the Jewish people. That's not why it is there. It is there to protect those resources so that the West can have somewhat of a foothold with those resources in the Middle East, and that the Arab countries wouldn't have it.
And can we also throw in that it really has nothing to do with Zionism per se? That's almost that's almost like a post hoc explanation for what this is. It's a resource focused agenda. I don't want to put words in your
Right.
mouth.
So people have to understand too that yes, Theodore Herzl, who was the father of Zionism,
Mhm.
they talked to the Rothschild family back in the
Mhm.
day, and they said we need a homeland for the Jewish people.
Mhm.
And the Rothschild family, they had money, they had connections and power, and they said, okay, well, let's put them, there in Palestine, and that's going to be the homeland for the Jewish people. However, it wasn't vacant. There was already people who were there. There were Palestinians there, and there were some Jewish people that were living there. But the point that I want to make is that the Zionism aspect, that could have been anywhere. They weren't just looking at Palestine, they were also looking at countries in Africa as well. So they could have created an
Uganda was a big.
exactly. Yes. So for the Zionism purpose, they could have put that anywhere.
Mhm.
But when it comes to corporate interests, because of the resources that exist in that region, that is the reason why Israel was there. That's why Israel was allowed to, right now, they're carpet bombing Lebanon again. That's why they're allowed to do that. And the scary part about all this is if this is not stopped, they will go forward with this greater Israel plan. They will expand more into Syria, into Lebanon, parts of Jordan, and also part of Saudi Arabia, whether they want to realize this or not, and parts of Egypt. The idea is to take over that whole entire
Mhm.
region. And then the West will be able to say, we have all of this
Right.
resource for ourselves. Now, here's the part that they don't tell you. I just told you the US empire is declining. The powers that be would rather have the United States fall and Israel rise than the other way
Mhm.
around.
Why is that?
So because again, the resources that are so rich that are there, the idea is to bring tech, AI, all of this that we're hearing now, a lot about open AI, et
Mhm.
cetera. All of that, if the plan goes the way that it's said to go, all of that is going to be centered in Israel. And Israel is going to be just this one big, giant resource hub. They don't care if the US declines. And that's the part I think some people may not want to hear, but that's the reality. The
Do
idea
you
is to build up Israel.
do you think that President Trump now first, um, I've been familiar with a little bit with schizophrenia, not me personally, but as a prosecutor in legal business, and they're far more predictable than our beloved President Trump is. From now, let me tell you how bad it is. Have you ever looked at, for example, YouTube and said, "Oh, it's Trump"? This was yesterday. I don't want to see it. I need something an hour ago. This is too old. This is a waste of time. It changes by JD Vance is in. He's not there anymore. He left. He made an agreement. He changed his mind. He's excoriating and execrating Bibi, but not really. But he wants to appoint. Now, hang on. Don't. I hope you're not drinking anything. He wants to appoint the head of Al Qaeda in in Syria to run Hezbollah. I mean, you're thinking, who? What? Is this a mistake? Do you think that President Trump, now, hear me out, is a genius, a savant, neither of the above, or has he just basically said, I've had it. I'm out of here. My legacy is done. I got algae in my pond. I got a ballroom. I don't give a shit about this. Pardon my French. It's over. I'm done. I've been used. I've had it. Which of those remotely explains it?
Yeah, I don't think Trump really cares because he's not supposed to run for reelection. I mean, this is kind of it for
No,
him.
right.
So I don't think he really cares. I think that Donald Trump, there may be some type of mental cognitive decline happening with him as well. I'm starting to see some similarities that I saw under Biden as well during his presidential term.
He was sharp as a tack. Excuse me. I beg your pardon.
Yeah, he's getting older. There's some of that, but the reality is,
No, I
with
meant
Donald
Biden. They
Trump,
said was Biden was sharp as a tack. They said, I don't know what you're talking about. Biden was. He was walking around yelling, "Who ordered the veal cutlet?" And Dr. Jill was saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I thought, well, maybe That was a
Yeah,
or
they
bad.
knew. They knew. No, I think that Donald Trump, in particular, we got to remember he's different than the other presidents. He is a part of that top 1%. So, that's why you see all these different pictures with him and Epstein, and he is a part of that club. So he's probably thinking about what happens after this, right? Like
Mhm.
he's just focused on like, I built up this, I want to make as much money during this presidential term as possible, which is what they've been doing. He's been increasing like his wealth along with Ivanka and Jared Kushner. Like they're growing their wealth. I don't think Donald Trump really cares what's going to happen, but I think the reason why his rhetoric is changing now is because we're getting closer to the midterms, right? So
Mhm.
I think that Trump and JD Vance, they're trying to find a way to get back that part of the base that split off, that is now, following and listening to Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and now Megyn Kelly. I think they're trying to get the anti-war MAGA people back over to their side so that Republicans can hold on to the House and the Senate in November. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to work. I think for some people, it's not just the Iran war, it's also the Epstein files, it's also the economy. So I think those are the three things that I've heard a lot from people. So it may be too late for some of those people to say, okay, I'm going back, and I'm going to give it another chance or whatever. But always pay attention to the rhetoric that is used as we get closer to election time
Mhm.
versus the rhetoric that's used when we're not, close to election time.
Who is the next president, do you think?
Oh, dear God. If the people who are said to probably run in 2028 do run, I think, and I hate to say this because I really am not a fan of this person, but I think Gavin Newsom has the best chance.
Why is that?
Number one is connections. For those who are
Getty.
not aware,
The Getty money that we've never heard about. Balthazar Getty and others. And he is this we never. So I'm with you on that. Check.
yeah. The other thing is he's related to Nancy Pelosi. I
Mhm.
don't think a lot of people know, but he's related to her by marriage. Nancy Pelosi is from a political, I would say, dynasty family at this point in time. I believe she was very pivotal in helping him get elected for governor in California. And I look at Gavin Newsom and I see him as completely corporate establishment and corrupt. He had a recall against him in California because he locked the state down, but then he wasn't following his own rules and he was still going out to lunch and dinner when he told everybody else to stay home. But I think the reality is a lot of Americans don't know that and don't realize that.
Mhm.
Gavin Newsom is that age where people aren't going to look at him and say, oh my God, this guy is way too old. Let's not do this again. But he's
Right.
not too young.
Right.
He's already been governor, right,
Mhm.
of a large state.
Mhm.
And then the connections that he has. And I think if Gavin Newsom runs for president, I think he has the best chance to win.
You've, I'm sure, read about the connection between the D'Alessandros, who is she, the Pelosi's, the Browns, the Gettys, the how it started, the people who bankrolled Gavin in his business, in his restaurants, and how this starts. This is a mafia we've never heard of. It's the West Coast mafia that nobody's ever heard of. Now, let's talk about something more mundane. Give me your most, not that you agree with this per se, but your favorite, doing the air quotes, conspiracy theory that you says, there's onto something. Exploding mics, uh, directed energy weapons. Give me something where you're thinking, there's something to that.
So at first, when I heard about weather control, I was like, I don't think this is a thing. But then I started to do a little bit more research, and I saw that LBJ. There are documents of
Mhm.
LBJ, basically asking for and leading the charge on
Operation
weather
Popeye.
control.
Remember
There
Popeyes?
you go. There you go. So some of the things that people have said are conspiracy theories, a lot of times there's a grain of truth to that, to the things that have been said. So that was the big one. I think that I never thought that I would believe.
Are you familiar with geoengineering and Dane Wigington? And they call them chemtrails, but how people can look up and see planes leaving these octothorpes and hashtags, and people say, oh, it's condensation, it's water vapor. Doesn't that blow your mind? They can just look up and say, and the sky is hazy. And they say, oh, well.
Yeah. I think that, when you look at the rates of disease in the US right now, cancer rates have increased. When I was a kid, I don't know about you, Lionel, but when I was a kid, I only knew of there was like one kid in my
Yep.
school that had cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're starting to see increased rates of that in children. And I think a lot of it is the food, the
Mm-hmm.
chemicals that they put in our food, and also the environment, the air that we're breathing in. So they're not trying to save us. They're not even trying to protect us.
Right. Well, they also say, for example, we used to have, I was, one of my lone voices, because on my grave or my monument, it'll read, I told you so. When GMOs came along, and somebody told me one time, I'll never forget this. He says, if a baby's born today, that baby will have never known what real corn is, or wheat, or beets, or sugar, or soy. Never. And their body is saying, what is this? What is this? Now, I must ask you about this, and you've talked about it, because anybody who your subject matter is a go-to list. If you're going to do a show, I would say go to Sabby Sabs, go to Sabrina's list, pick any of the top, and notice how they secret societies, Palantir, how this guy gets away with it. JFK talked about secret societies, the whole notion of it. And what is that? If somebody's been in a coma and says secret society, what is that about, and why aren't people horrified by it?
Yeah, so some of us have believed for quite some time that there are secret societies that are making decisions that are beyond our control. And now we have proof of one of them, this group called Dialogue, which is created by Peter Thiel, another billionaire. I would also say Peter Thiel is the one who created JD Vance, just FYI for those who are not aware. And so hackers were able to get this information about this secret society called Dialogue and the list of those who were a part of it. And what you'll see is that this is not about left versus right. The people who are listed there, we're talking about politicians from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, Cory Booker, Ted Cruz. We're talking about CEOs, Elon Musk. So you got trillionaires, billionaires. Then you also have journalists like Ezra Klein from the New York Times.
This is Bilderberg, isn't it? Isn't it it's like a little, like a mini Bilderberg that people told me was also BS?
Yeah. Basically, and what it goes to show you is that when you see people like Cory Booker and Ted Cruz, when they rail against the Democrats or rail against the Republicans, that is all theater. Behind the scenes, these people, they work together for their class interests or those who are class adjacent. So as much as you'll hear them make these, like Cory Booker, for example, he was the one that made that long speech on the Senate floor and we got to stop Trump, we got to stop the Republicans. But he works alongside with the Republicans just in secret. Jared Kushner is a part of this group, right? You have actors like Joseph Gordon-Levitt that's a part of this group. Sophia Bush from One Tree Hill. So it's rich people, some famous people. You have the tech bros, and you also have the CEO of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, is a part of this group. So what I noticed they all had in common is that they support billionaire and trillionaire interests, but also they're all pro-Israel. Well. That was something I noticed from the names that were released so far. They're having conversations about World War III, the future of us, like the rest of us, and what to do with us and how we're disposable. They basically, what I gathered from that leak is that they see us as a failed experiment. And they feel as though that AI is going to fix all of that. So we are at the bottom, like, to these people. And I believe when you see like these secret societies, this is what is really running the show. And it's not the president, Congress, they're just puppets. They're puppets of the billionaire and the trillionaire class. But they don't really control much. A lot of the legislation that they write also benefits corporate interests, not their constituents. So that is who the enemy really is.
That is, you know what? I if somebody had told me that somebody took my part of my brain or whatever, and that we somehow exchange this, because I'm looking at you, I'm thinking, this is odd. Maybe you're AI, maybe you're an experiment, because you're saying, because what I have, you noticed that people that you might have thought that's some right-wing Trumper nut, and then you're realizing, wait a minute, hey, he's not so bad. I'm not going to go through the list, but there are people that I wouldn't have given a time of day. Now are thinking, wait, hear her out. And I'm seeing this left-right thing dissolving. Do you think that maybe Trump and these people brought us together by basically scaring the living, out of us, causing us to form new bonds, new parties? I know it sounds crazy, but I do you find yourself now agreeing with people that maybe a couple of years ago you wouldn't have given the time of day?
This is why I say Kamala, in order for this to even come about, Kamala Harris had to lose. Because if Kamala would have won, the liberals would have gone back to sleep. Like if bombs were dropping on Iran and Kamala was president, most of the Democrats would not complain. They would tell us to be quiet and to give her a chance, right? So this is why this had to happen. And I think that those who did vote for Trump because he said no more wars and that he was going to fix the economy, he was going to fix what Biden messed up, I think it's a wake-up call, right, for some of them. And what I will say to people is, don't shame the voters. I don't like when people shame them and they say, well, you should have known better, right? Like people said that to me. You should have known better. Why would you do da da da? Well, you don't know until you know.
And it could also, you can also ask anybody who's ever gotten a divorce, well, didn't you know that? No, that's the whole point of this. You mentioned something before about your when you were a kid. I don't know anything about your age or where you're from, but my wife and I saw the premiere, this is my mindset, of Toy Story 5 yesterday. You gotta see this. It's phenomenal. Little kids playing versus the devices and how they I'm telling you, it's a message. There is an internal fight there. I don't know anything about you, which is because you don't want to ask, but if somebody were having kids today, wouldn't you say, oh no, can you imagine being a kid today when the stuff that you did, and you're younger than I am, that when you did, you must seem like ancient. It's like, did you ever climb a tree? Did you ever play? Did you ever pretend? Did you ever ride bikes? Did you ever? They'll look at you like, what are you?
Yeah.
Help me with this. Isn't it critical? Isn't that developmental critical part of us? It's being lost, and nobody talks about it.
I do worry when I see kids that are very young with devices, whether it's a cell phone or whether it's an iPad and they're playing with that. I do worry about that. I think there's something about being detached from that and having that real world experience. So for me, I don't think these kids, should have those devices. I guess I understand, like when you're a teenager, it's a little bit different, but what happened to going outside to play? When I was a kid and I went outside, my mom had to beg me to come back inside. Like it's things like that. Like, yes, climbing trees. We used to play in the sandbox. Are those really around much anymore? I don't see a lot of playgrounds around, Lionel, where I live.
That's right.
That's another thing. I don't really see a lot of kids outside, like riding their bikes or anything like that. And so I think I worry that some may be using these devices as a way to keep their kids occupied so that they don't have to deal with them too. And I don't think that that's fair to the child. I think that I just grew up very differently. Like my mom read to me when I was a kid.
I know.
We spent a lot of time together, and yes, I had my Saturday morning cartoons where I would watch those in the morning, but my parents were very, strict when it came to how much TV I watched, how many video games I played. I couldn't play video games without doing my homework, that type of thing. Right. And I do worry that people are just allowing these devices to just basically raise the kids.
Do you ever marvel at how many times in the past, I don't know when, how many times in a day you hear the word trafficking?
Yes and no. Unfortunately, it's a bigger issue than people realize.
Oh
Like
yeah.
even before Epstein, there was a friend of mine lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and he told me a lot of people didn't know how, Atlanta, Georgia had a big trafficking problem. And this was years ago. And he talked about how they used to traffic kids at the stadium that the Atlanta Falcons play at.
Mhm.
Yeah, he said that was like a hot spot for trafficking. And so this was years ago that he was telling me about this. A lot of people just don't know. And so it's more common, I think, than people really understand.
And
There's
they also,
Epstein, but there's others.
and you bring up a very good point. It's common here. It's here. It's not necessarily in
Mhm.
Ethiopia or in whatever. By the way, I've got to ask one question before we round this up. If you do you have I don't know where to start. Are you as fascinated as I am by the death of Charlie, the emergence of Candace, the emergence of Erica Kirk, and this, I don't want to use this word ecosystem. I hate that term. But this, it's like watching two universes collide. Doesn't this, how it's brought more people in, this soap opera meets reality, and how people are saying, would you just convict Tyler and shut up? Quit asking questions. It's like Lee Harvey Oswald, be damned. Don't tell me he's a patsy. Help me out with this one. What do you make out of all that?
When Charlie Kirk was killed, I remember that day there were people that were mocking it. And I said, number one, don't do that. And number two, like I didn't agree with Charlie Kirk on most things, but you never know when that can happen on your side, right?
Mhm.
You don't know when that can happen to your favorite political commentator that is on the left. It can happen either way. And what I found having conversations with some of the other political YouTubers behind the scenes, people were really scared. After Charlie Kirk was killed, people were afraid, well, maybe I shouldn't do this book appearance. Maybe I should not go speak at this event in DC. Like some people were afraid to speak in public again. Some people were worried, like, what if someone is going to do that to me? And that's the reality. So I know they won't say this on camera, but there were people behind the scenes, they were terrified that it
It
could be
should be.
them next,
And should
right?
be. Listen,
Yeah.
that we said the same thing. To many people, what I found interesting, that was their John Lennon. And I was surprised at how many people that I knew who were so shocked and hurt and really saddened by the loss of Charlie. And I didn't, I mean, I knew him. I didn't follow every word he said, but there were people and young people who loved him. But then there's the emergence. What do you think of Candace Owens? I've got to ask.
It's interesting because I know some people said, well, Tucker Carlson and Candace and Megan, they're just jumping on this bandwagon of being, anti-Israel because it's popular. I will say with her, she spoke out against the genocide when she was still working with the Daily Wire. I think sometimes people forget that.
Mhm.
That's why they said, Ben Shapiro said, you got to go. You can't work with us anymore because she called out what Israel was doing. And I will say, I think the easier route for her would have been not to do that, right?
Right.
Like she would probably still be at the Daily Wire, and I'm pretty sure they would still invite her on to Fox News to speak there. And the reality is, once you move in a certain direction against a certain country, you're no longer invited into those spaces. And that's the reality for a lot of us that are on the left. You won't see us invited onto like Fox News, CNN, because of we have that said position, right? Especially nowadays. But I will say, I think that Ben Shapiro on the Daily Wire expected her to fail. I think that when they fired her and she decided I'm just going to do my own podcast, I'm just going to be independent now. I don't think they expected her to have that type of
Oh no.
longevity. Yeah.
I don't know.
And this all kind of blew up in their faces, and they're the ones that are losing subscribers now. So I think it's really interesting. And the reality is, Erica Kirk, to me, just she always came across to me as very fake. And I don't really know how to describe that, but it's just you get that feeling that this person is putting on an act. And then you look at the way how quickly TPUSA moved after he died to, okay, let's go back to having these rallies and these events and conferences. It was very weird to me that someone who just lost their husband was like, let me get out on the road because I'm now the CEO. If it were me, I would have actually deferred that CEO position to someone else at Turning
Yes.
Point USA. I would have
Yes.
not been in the mind frame to go
Yes.
out there and do that. It was very weird to me. And then you just see how every time, like I saw her speaking, like on stage or the Barry Weiss town hall, it seemed very
Right.
performative to me, right? And so, and there's some weird things about her and her background as well. But
Right. Right.
I
Right.
think it's waking people up. A lot of young people that believed in Turning Point USA.
That is exactly right. Look, here's the thing. You have couple of things here. First and foremost, number one, what's so wonderful, do you not agree that this platform, whatever the hell this is, women have just shot to the top? They would have the regular sock puppet media were all male or in a corporate. You're seeing a cacophony of new voices, many of them women, many of them from places that would have never been on TV, not for anything to do with looks or anything like that, but just, and you're finding out how great this is. YouTube unlocked this. Don't you also find that you and Candace may disagree about certain things? Okay, fine. But what you do agree with, you agree 100%. And that's all that matters. Finding this, the square peg in a round hole, it'll fit if you push it sometimes hard enough. That's what I see as great. I see a new everything. The destruction of left and right, the destruction of Democrat Republicans, and this commonality of freedom, anti-surveillance, and then the other stuff is like, That's like when you marry somebody and you love them, you go, you know what? I love her, but she's got this thing. But it's kind of cute. Who cares? That's the way I feel about it. You know what I mean? It's so many people right now, people who are watching, who would watch you, would have never watched you had it not been for somebody who found that they agreed with you as to, let's say, war or the Middle East or whatever. That's what I'm trying to say, perhaps in a gobbledygook kind of way. But I see this, I don't want to bring it to We Are the World and We Are the Children and do a Coke commercial, but I see I see a new everything here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, something has changed. Something has definitely changed. And I think that people in my life, there's no one that I know that I agree with on everything. There's no one. And for whatever reason, when it comes to politics, especially on political YouTube, you're only supposed to talk to people that agree with you 100% politically. And the only way you can talk to someone if they don't agree with you politically is if it's a like Pierce Morgan style debate. And it's weird to me. You can't tell me that these people in their everyday lives don't have bosses, don't have family members that don't agree with them on everything 100% politically. I know that that's the case definitely for me. And the real world is you're going to have to talk to people that you may not agree with on certain things. That's just the real world. And I think there is a change. I think when you look at shows, for example, like Breaking Points, they give you both sides, right?
Yes.
So you have two conservatives, you have two, lefties on the show. I think that is the direction where people are moving towards, and not this, I just only want to hear from an echo chamber,
Absolutely.
mentality.
I've been watching them so much, the Sagar and Crystal, and also there's something about being able to, younger people are told these kids don't have the attention span of a gnat. They love long form. They'll binge watch 12 seasons of whatever it is. This business about young people can't pay attention is nonsense. We need sometimes 30, 40 minutes uninterrupted to explain something, and they'll be there with you. That's what they do. Not only do they, and the proliferation of, you name it. I'm with you. Listen, you have been terrific. Let me wrap this up. I want to give you the final word. And let me, before I say thank you for this, you are, put it this way, I don't like anybody. And I have noticed, I said, this, watch her, listen to what she says. And you have, and just to say that I've been in the business a long time, you have something which is very difficult. I'm not being gratuitous. People just like you. You have this thing you come across where people say, I like her. You know, you're just, it's, I don't want to mention people that you watch and you don't like, but you'll know what I'm talking about. So you've got something going, you've got a great message, and you're very smart, and you know what you're talking about. So anyway, thank you for that. But in your final word, in your valedictory, what is it? Tell the world.
Yeah, just to say that, guys, like if we start paying attention to top versus bottom instead of left versus right, I think like there'll be less frustration. And the way that you fight back against that top 1% is that we have to build parallel systems, right? You have to build dual power. But that means in order to do that, you are going to have to work with your neighbors. You have to talk to them, whether you guys
Absolutely.
agree on everything politically or not.
Thank you so much. Sabrina, Sabby Sabs, Sabrina Salvati. Who knew? Italiana. Anyway, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We will talk again, I hope. And you are always welcome here. And you have been a delight. And I thank you so, so very much. And I've got all of your information so they can catch you if, in case they've been in a coma and have no idea who you are. Thank you so, so very much.
Thank you, Lionel.
Thank you so much. All right, my friends. Now, what did you think about that? What's your take? Wasn't she phenomenal? And I'm not saying that just to be cute. I mean that. She was terrific, smart, in the know, and I thought she was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And there are so many others we're going to be talking to also. Like I said, we've got a week from today, Candace Owens, right here. And I don't even have to tell you what that's going to be about. But so far, we've had such great people. Also, I told you, I'm looking at Tucker for, I think, maybe first part of July, a couple of weeks, who knows. And Uncle Buck, his brother, who was the most elusive of them all, and anybody else you would like to talk to, whatever. I think it's terrific. And also, many times, believe it or not, when people do a show, they're unable to, how do I say this? They're unable to answer the questions that they are, when somebody asks them a question, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Yeah, they are giving the opinion, and they are giving it in a kind of a ad seriatim kind of a delivery, but not the same as somebody asking them specifically. So in any event, I thank you. Sabby Sabs, I've got a link for her. She is terrific. And I want to thank you, dear friends. And I also ask you, please like this video. Liking it is so critical. Also, make sure you subscribe and resubscribe again. Oftentimes it's left or dropped or whatever you want to call it for reasons I don't know. Please do that. And in any event, dear friends, I also ask you to subscribe. Also hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and new videos. Also follow Mrs. L at Lynn's Warriors. And thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as I have. We'll be on later. I don't know today. Who knows? Who in the hell knows? In any event, I thank you. I love you. We'll talk soon. Don't forget, Monkey's dead. Show's over. Sue ya. Ta-ta.